My name is Shreya, and I'm a second year PhD student from Alliance Manchester Business School. So, in this presentation, I'm going to be introducing my PhD research to you, which is the impact of diversity networks in attaining organizational equality. So, I am at the very early stages of my research and I have not started data collection yet. So, in this presentation, I'm going to explain to you how I have engaged with the literature and how that has informed my research questions and the methodological choices that I would be using in order to operationalize those research questions. So this is basically the agenda of my presentation that I would be following. So first of all, why is this topic important? So a lot of feminist scholars, particularly Acker, mentioned that the organization is hierarchically structured. And as a result of this hierarchical structure, they contribute to a lot of social and economic inequalities that exist in the world of work. And the work is disproportionately allocated, where most of the heterosexual men hold important positions within organizations, and individuals with minority characteristics are at the bottom of the organizational ladder. And diversity networks are actually seen as one of the organizational tools that can be used in order to tackle these kind of structural inequalities within organizations. But at the same time, there have not been a lot of studies on how these networks can actually achieve it. So this is the aim of my research, to understand how these networks can actually impact with attaining equality. So let's start with some background. So diversity networks are intra-firm networks, which are formed based on a shared sense of social identity. For example, a women's network or an ethnic minority network. And they can either be formed by employee volunteers within an organization or by the HR of an organization. And how they're formed impacts what the focus of the networks will be. So the networks that are formed by employee volunteers are more focused on helping their members, who are usually composed of historically marginalized groups, advance through the organization and be able to attain equality. So it has a more it focuses more on the social justice case of diversity. However, the ones that are created by the human resources are more focused on helping the firm manage diversity better and retain a positive image of the organization. So it's more focused on furthering the business case of diversity. So a lot of scholars are increasingly concerned that due to this managerialization of networks, the focus is shifting from the much needed role of networks in advocating for equality. More recently, some scholars have mentioned that instead of looking at equality from a single identity category, it is important to look at it from an intersectional lens. So intersectionality takes into account how an individual's multiple identities lead to multiple locations of discrimination and create unique forms of inequalities. And this term was first coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in a legal context in the US, where she explained how Black women in US workplaces were experiencing discrimination because they were Black and they were women. So intersectionality sort of takes into consideration that because of their multiple identities, they were experiencing discrimination, which could not be understood singularly as racism or sexism, but it's an interplay of both. That's why a lot of scholars think it's important to look at equality from an intersectional lens. So instead of studying equality from a single lens, for example, gender equality or race equality, looking at intersectional equality is more important in understanding how these networks can impact on individuals. And this is also the theoretical framework that I would be using for my research. So as I explained initially, in the literature, there is no consensus whether the networks are more focused on the business case or more focused on the social justice case. And in order to get a sense of it, I conducted a literature review to understand why these networks are important within organizations, and are they more focused towards the business case or more towards the social justice case? So what I found is that one of the first important features of these networks is that they're supposed to foster a sense of belonging within the members. So members feel that if a network like this exists, the organization values them as individuals because they can see others like them in the organization, and this helps them feel like there's a safe space and provides them with psychological safety, and also gives the impression that the organization is an inclusive and a diversity friendly employer. But some scholars argue that not all members equally feel the sense of belonging, particularly members with intersectional identities, because since these networks are focused on a single identity category, members with intersectional identities sometimes do not know which networks they fully fit into. So it doesn't invoke that sense of belonging for these members compared to the other members. The next function that I noticed for which networks are important within an organization is sharing information and also increasing visibility for their members. So network members are able to share amongst each other valuable information that would be useful for them to navigate the organizational culture, and at the same time learn how to deal with instances of discrimination within an organization. And also, as a network, they can organize conferences and events, which raises awareness of network-specific issues to the broader organization and also increases their visibility. But it's not really clear from the literature how being part of these networks actually helps with their career progression, how this information can actually lead them to move up the career ladders. That's not really clear. So the third thing I found is that in the literature, the networks are seen as a bridge between employees and organizations. Employees feel that because these networks exist, they have a voice because the networks can relay their concerns to the broader organization and to the management. At the same time, however, not all employees feel that these networks are effective voice mechanisms because they don't think that the networks have a lot of power, because at the end of the day, they're reliant on the organization for resources. So all these things indicate to me that the networks are more geared towards the business case because they're helping the organization seem more diversity friendly, and not much has been done on how the networks can impact the social justice case. And also, most of these studies are based on employee and firm perception. So what I find is missing in the literature is what are the outcomes of these networks on their members. And the outcomes that I am specifically interested in is the outcome on equality. And based on this, my PhD will focus on the broad research question on how diversity networks impact in attaining organizational equality. And to answer these broad questions, I pose a number of sub-questions. So in the first question, I want to look at what are the functions of these networks and how do these networks go about developing their goals, and what are the activities are to fulfill these functions, because this will play a big role in to what extent these networks can actually impact on equality, because if their goals are not tailored towards it, it's most likely not going to have a positive impact on equality. The second question I want to look at is how the networks actually situate themselves within the organization, because as I mentioned initially, the organizations are more interested in increasing their bottom line, while the networks are more interested in furthering the advancement of their members. But at the same time, they're dependent on the organization for resources. So how do they strategically position themselves within the organization to be able to balance between the two? The third one, I'm interested in understanding the internal power dynamics within the networks, because as I mentioned, these networks are focused on a single identity lens, while there are members within the networks who have intersectional identities. So how does the network actually reconcile these intersectional identities to create a collective voice? And what is the role of power in determining these voice mechanisms, and what are the markers of these powers? And finally, I want to understand how all these activities facilitate or hinder their members in attaining organizational equality. So to answer these research questions, I would like to conduct semi-structured interviews with both network members within organizations and also the senior management, and at the same time conduct targeted participant observations. I'm sorry, I can't see the 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we can. So, as I was saying, and also conduct targeted participant observation of the network meetings in order to understand how these networks make decisions and also be able to observe the power dynamics at play. In terms of organizations, I want to conduct a comparative study between public and private sector organizations to understand how the profit orientation of a firm impacts on the networks. And in order to gain access, I have been trying to utilize the networks of my business school. So I've been reaching out to people, organizations who are partners with my business school or alumni who work in big organizations which have networks. And currently, I'm in the process of negotiating access with a global financial services firm in the UK and also a local authority. And once I am able to gain my ethical approval, I hope to start collecting data from March next year. To end the presentation, what are some of the proposed contributions that I feel that my project will have? So first of all, as I mentioned initially, I would like to create a framework of intersectional equalities and use that framework in order to understand the role of networks on equality. So I would try to assess intersectional equalities through my framework and through my study. So this is one of the things I think would be contributing to the academic literature. In terms of more practical contributions, I think there are implications for network practitioners to understand how they can be more agentic as a network, and also for the organizations to understand what their networks actually do in the organization beyond making the organization look like a diversity-friendly employer. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.